Now confirmed that there was indeed a woman who was with the shooter in the footage that was captured by the houses nearby the area. And for whatever reason, the FBI has not yet released or even acknowledged that that footage exists.
You know the name, you know the headline. But what if the whole story you saw on the news, the official police report, the simple conclusion was just a carefully manufactured distraction? We're going far beyond the superficial today. We're tearing into the final, agonizing thoughts of Charlie Kirk, exposed by his own friend Candace Owens. This isn't just a political tragedy. It's a terrifying blueprint of a conspiracy that targeted him from every single angle: his marriage, his money, and his movement. This is the ultimate evidence-by-evidence breakdown of the three plots that allegedly sealed his fate. And trust me, the closer you look at what he wrote in those pages, what he confessed about his wife, about his inner circle, the harder it gets to believe that any of this was a random act of violence.
I just want to say that I feel like at the beginning of this investigation, I was very clear. I said there will be no fakeness and there will be no gayness in this investigation. And apparently there were some people who did not take me seriously or literally, because there are a lot of little lies being told, right? Charlie gets assassinated, and the very people who were threatening him, emotionally and financially, are now trying to memorialize him.
The collapse of Charlie Kirk didn't start with an external threat. It started with silence and fear inside his own home. He was the voice of a generation, a man who seemed untouchable on the debate stage. But Candace Owens claims the diary entries from his final days reveal something completely different. A leader consumed by paranoia and profound dread. This wasn't simple stress from public life. It was the terror of being watched, the suffocating realization that his most private life had been invaded and exposed. Charlie wrote of an unbearable unease, describing the very walls of his house as actively closing in on him. This is the psychological marker of a man who knows deep down that his sanctuary is compromised. And the arrow of suspicion instantly, tragically pointed at his wife, Erica Kirk. You have to grasp the sheer gravity of that claim. Candace didn't just speculate. She exposed his raw, unedited fear, asserting that Charlie felt someone he trusted implicitly was keeping monumental secrets from him. She insisted these entries were written just days before the incident, making the psychological collapse an immediate precursor to the physical attack. The theory here is devastating. You can't eliminate a leader until you first completely isolate him. His home, his marriage, had to be systematically turned into a psychological cage, stripping him of any emotional defense. The diary went beyond mere suspicion. It detailed a structured exclusion that speaks volumes about organizational betrayal. Charlie wrote that he was being intentionally excluded from key conversations and critical decisions within his own organization. He was the founder, the face, the intellectual driving force. Sadachvia was being treated like a figurehead on his way out. This wasn't accidental distance. It felt like a premeditated act of sabotage, designed to weaken his authority before the final strike. The realization that he had been neutralized by his own colleagues must have been a crushing blow. And the emotional pinnacle, the part that makes your blood run cold, is the single, heartbreaking line Candace brought to light. I still love her, but I don't know if she'll be there for me. Street hustler tone. Sadachvia. The vulnerability created by the psychological assault was immediately exploited by the financial conspiracy. Charlie's integrity in facing unrelenting pressure from powerful donors to compromise his political line led to the devastating loss of a $2 million annual donor. The messages Candace shared painted him as a leader refusing to sell out, choosing principle over the organization's massive budget. This act of defiance made him a financial liability who could no longer be controlled by external money. This massive external pressure forced Charlie to look for problems inside his own house. And that's where he found the final, fatal piece of the puzzle, the internal audit. Candace claims that Charlie suspected the organizational stress was being compounded by corruption and secret dealings within the executive staff, and he launched a full audit to expose them. Sadaj Bia was allegedly signed the audit request just days before the tragic event. The people who stood to lose their careers and face criminal charges, the internal plotters, were now on an undeniable deadline. His private note, "Some people are not going to like what I'm about to find," was not merely a comment, it was a clear warning that he had just uncovered the specific, devastating motive for his own murder. The audit was the trigger, his life was the cost. His actions in the final days, frantically checking who had access to his secure files, demanding to know if he was being monitored, were the visible signature of a man who knew he had crossed the line. He realized he was no longer a political commentator, he was an informant about to be silenced before he could expose the crime. The organizational secrecy that followed, the vanishing files, the abrupt cessation of projects, the hushed conversations were, in this theory, the desperate actions of the conspirators working overtime to bury the audit findings and eliminate the financial trail that led directly back to them. With the financial motive established and the internal plot secured, the next phase required a clean cover-up. The official narrative was immediately challenged by the calm skepticism of Joe Rogan, whose voice gave instant legitimacy to the doubt. Rogan felt the official story didn't quite line up, pointing specifically to the suspicious speed with which the case was wrapped up. His gut feeling became the signal for millions that the authorities were either incompetent or actively hiding something. Street hustler tone, Sadaj Bia. Rogan's detailed analysis focused on the visible evidence, particularly the official suspect. He described the photos as too staged, like a manufactured scene, and pointed to inconsistencies that made the entire narrative feel like a movie script that got rewritten halfway through. The neatness of the official closure, he argued, was the very evidence of the cover-up, a calculated effort to sanitize the narrative and distract from the organization's involvement. The most explosive claim in the external plot was the appearance of the decoy figure. Rogan hinted at an older, familiar operative rumored to have surfaced in multiple major national crises over the past 2 decades. This suggested a professional, external team was involved. This conspiracy theory solidified when this same shadow figure was reportedly seen agitating and drawing attention away from the scene immediately after the event. This decoy was a deliberate diversion, ensuring that the real perpetrators, the organizational planners, could secure their position without witnesses or interference. This was tragically validated when Candace Owens revealed Charlie's own notes mentioned a mysterious figure intentionally planted to mislead people. Charlie had figured out the decoy plot himself. He realized he wasn't facing a lone threat. He was confronting a coordinated external operation, brought in to guarantee the trail stopped cold at an expendable pawn and never led back to the high-level plotters. The official suspect, according to this theory, was merely the final control component of a sophisticated cover-up. Street hustler tone, 50 Cent style. The conspiracy's final, ruthless act focused on the quick, calculated maneuverings of Erica Kirk. The most powerful piece of circumstantial evidence was the suspicious speed and smoothness of her ascent to the leadership position at the organization. Just days after the tragedy, the grieving widow was back in front of the cameras acting as the spiritual successor. The rapid pivot fueled the theory that this transition was not a reaction to grief, but the activation of a succession plan that had been long prepared in anticipation of Charlie's removal. Candace Owens brought the diary's personal accusations full circle, claiming Charlie's final entries detail his concern that major decisions were being made without him, precisely aligning with key meetings that Erica allegedly attended alone. This strengthened the theory that the domestic betrayal was a functional, organizational plot to strip him of his authority. Sometimes the people closest to you aren't standing by your side. They're standing behind you. This became the conspiracy's ultimate summation, suggesting the external enemies and the financial plotters were only successful because the betrayal came from the inside, from the person who had the ultimate access and trust. The final cold victory of the plot was not Charlie's death, but the seizure of his life's work by the very people who stood to gain the most from his silence. The organization's continued secrecy, the lack of transparency regarding the audit, and the smooth transfer of power all confirm, in the eyes of the theorists, that the conspiracy worked perfectly. The diary, those agonizing final words, remains the only true testament to the hidden war that devoured him.